Okay, hello everyone. So, for today's episode, I have my friend Pat McManus on. We went to law school together. We actually both did the summer enrichment program, which is like a intro to law school before law school actually starts. So, it starts in June instead of September. So, Pat and I known each other for over a decade. Like honestly, since we were kids. I was 21, he was 22, and a decade later, you can do the math. And he honestly has one of the best glow ups from law school, both from his weight gain or weight loss. He lost a lot of weight in law school by himself. He has since started his own law firm with his law partner. They've been running that successfully for about 4 years, including during the pandemic, which we will talk about. And he kept the weight off. His law firm is thriving. And I personally have just seen such a confident boost in him since when I first met him in law school. He was a big guy, very quiet, very shy, very much so a wallflower. He was always social, really great, but very quiet. And I can see now, whether I bump into him at the gym or even during our interview, you can see the confidence in him. And of course, you guys may not have known him 10 years ago when he was bigger, but the the boost in self confidence is unreal. And he'll talk about how he lost, a third of his body weight by himself, what motivated him to lose that weight, as well as how that weight loss has impacted and changed his life, both personally and professionally. So I'm very, very excited for this episode. And without further ado, let's get into it.
Yep.
Okay. Well, hi, Pat.
Hey, Julia, how you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on. I know we bumped into each other a couple times at EOS. So thank you again for being on and taking time out of your very busy day. So as I was saying earlier, Pat and I went to law school together, and he is now a owner and partner at his own law firm. And how long have you been at your own firm, Pat?
So, July 1st of this past year was our 4 year anniversary.
Oh
So
my
it's,
goodness.
yeah, 4 years and it's September. So 4 years and almost 3 months now. Yeah.
That's a pretty long time. So you started the firm in 2019, and what were you doing before that?
So before that, I worked at a mid-sized law firm here in San Diego, and I was primarily doing public works construction litigation. So a lot of things like in federal court on cases known as Miller Act bonds, which are when like subcontractors and suppliers don't get paid for work on a project for like a federal project, like a military base or something like that. I represent a lot of general contractors for those cases. I did a lot of state public works construction, like in California. There are, public bidding requirements where certain public projects, like a school, for example,
Okay.
needs to be publicly bid. It's not like in the private sector where you can hire whoever you want, because for public works, we're supposed to have, accountability to our taxpayers and things like that. So
Okay.
there's very specialized rules. So short answer is a lot of kind of boring stuff before I went out on my own. Well, not on my own, but with my partner.
Okay. And were you at the same law firm straight out of law school until you opened your firm with your partner?
So I was at two. My first firm that I worked at outside of law school was a smaller boutique firm
Okay.
where primarily we did telecommunications transactional work. So like writing leases and easements for cell phone tower companies, and that's where I kind of learned that the transactional side of law was not for me, and I really wanted to get involved in litigation. So then
Okay.
I shifted over to that other firm that I mentioned before.
Okay. And then when did you, or how did you then decide to take the leap from leaving a law firm with that steady monthly income to branch out and start your own firm? Because that's quite a risk, right? Especially for someone who's relatively fresh out of law school, because you were, what, 3 years as an attorney at that point?
Barely, barely, yeah. So I passed
Yeah,
the bar in December 2016. So then started the firm July 2019. So I was up
yeah.
2.5 years out. It's actually a funny story. So my partner Armin, who you know, and I, one day after law school, we had been kind of commiserating about how being a lawyer, especially a young lawyer, is pretty tough, and kind of just going through the different
Hmm.
trials and tribulations of our job. And we said, hey, one day when we have some more experience, we should start our own firm and do our own thing. And we both were really keen on that. And he actually started his own firm a few months before I joined. Technically, you could say I joined him.
Okay.
Um, because he had been out on his own for a few months. He was doing a lot of criminal defense and he was doing some personal injury. And he told me at one point, he's like, "Hey, are you still serious about us doing our own firm?" And I said, "Yeah, definitely." And he said, "Well, I'm getting pretty busy and I can use some help, so right now might be a good time." And I had some money saved up and felt that I was experienced enough at that point to do it. So I put in my notice. I gave my firm 2 months instead of 2 weeks just because I like the people there. It wasn't personal, and it's more
Yeah.
about just doing my own thing. So I gave them 2 months notice and then, yeah, then we started our own thing.
How did your firm take your 2 month notice? Because I don't know if you've heard, but now I work in labor and employment. So a lot of the times people don't even want to give their 2 weeks, because then there's been instances where people give their 2 weeks and then the boss is like, actually, you could just leave now, like, bye. So how did your firm take your 2 month notice?
So, I've actually heard about that same situation that you just mentioned, which I think is kind of unfortunate for people, especially when you're doing, what you're supposed to do
Mm-hmm.
by giving notice. So they took it really well. The main reason I stayed is because I was working on this really complex trial with the partner that I worked for. Obviously, I wasn't at the time even experienced enough that I would second chair, but I was doing all the trial prep work, the typical stuff like getting all the documents and exhibits together, witness outlines. And I really cared about the case a lot and cared about the client, so I wanted to see it all the way through. So I decided to stay on just to prepare for that case, and they were happy about that. Obviously, um, it wasn't because of any issue that I had with the firm, and I think
Mm-hmm.
they understood that. So that I think that played
Good.
into it too. So yeah,
Nice. That's honestly very honorable of you to have that responsibility. Like you said, you care about the client and you wanted to see this case through, because not everybody feels that way about their job. So I think, that says something, that says a lot about you as a person and as an attorney. Um, and so I'm guessing you and that firm still have a relatively good relationship.
we do. They've actually referred me a couple cases. One of which I'm working on right now. So yeah, I'm still pretty close with the two main partners that I work for
Nice.
over there, and yeah, we have a pretty nice cordial relationship. No hard feelings on either end. So. Like I think is the best way to do business, not to burn any bridges or anything like that.
Absolutely. And I think that's something I'm learning to work on, both professionally and personally. Because there's definitely been times where, I'll burn that professional bridge because, yeah, I'm so mad or I'm so angry, um, and, some personal bridges, but that part's okay.
I'm better on the professional side with that, I'll say.
It definitely makes it a little bit easier, but, I think for a lot of people, I think for us, we're lucky enough to be not stuck at a position, right? Because working in labor and employment, it was so heartbreaking to see so many of my clients essentially stuck at their job, because if they leave, they're not sure if they're going to find something comparable, or how they're going to generate revenue when they have, a whole family or children to raise. Luckily for us, we just had student loans, not a whole nother human being to feed. So I think that's amazing that you got out the time that you did. However, you said you started your firm in September of 2019. And then so
Yep.
we all know that the turn of the year was the quite the world change. So how did you guys navigate that as a relatively young firm during the pandemic?
So I'm glad you brought that up. It was tough because first, obviously we had only been in business for a few months, and with
Right.
any new business, it's tough to maintain a client base and then grow a client base at the
Exactly.
same time, which we were kind of just starting to do before, February, March 2020. And
Mm-hmm.
then all of a sudden, the shutdown happens, right? Like COVID,
Right.
all businesses are closed, and all those businesses that were closed included the courts, right? The courts were only open for certain emergency things like domestic violence
Right.
issues. Which obviously, they need to be open for that, but for pretty much the bread and butter of what my partner and I do, which is we do general civil litigation, none of that emergency stuff. It pretty much put all of our active cases on hold, prevented
Mm-hmm.
us from doing our job, from billing for our billable cases, from pushing our contingency cases. So for a bit there, we had to completely reinvent our business model. Thankfully, like we said before about not burning any bridges and staying cordial with people, my boss from my first law firm, him and I were still on pretty good terms, and that's the one where I used to do a lot of transactional work, like
Mm-hmm.
contracts. They were still totally doing business as usual because the shutdown didn't really affect the telecommunications industry. Honestly, it made it even more important, right? Because now everybody's at home, everyone needs good internet, good cell phone connections, and there was kind of more of a demand for that. So I hit
Yeah.
him up, and he started giving us some contract work to do, some of council work to do for billable rates. And honestly, he really made sure that we were able to put food on the table and pay our bills for a couple months there while we couldn't do anything else.
That's awesome. And so for those listening in law, there's two types, right? Pat mentioned billables as well as contingency. Billables is when you can bill your clients by the hour. So uh, usually by 6 minutes, which is a point 0.10 increment, or there's contingency cases, which you don't get paid unless you get something for the client. So, like you said, when the court closed, it caused havoc because he can't bill his billable clients because like the courts were closed unless it's for emergencies, and the contingency ones are unless you guys are able to settle outside of the court. That kind of just sits there. And contingency cases, I think, because I worked in labor and employment, all my firms, well, except for one, was all contingency. And that's actually a huge cost for the client, for the firm. The longer a contingency case sits there, it's essentially costing the attorney money because it's it's costing shelf life. It's taking up the space. Um, we didn't. I didn't even ask what kind of law are you and Armin doing now, since you said you have both billables and contingency.
So honestly, we do pretty much everything in civil litigation. I'd say our specialty is we do a lot of tenants' rights cases, like tenants that have mold or asbestos in their apartment, tenants where, for example, they have unpermitted work or dangerous conditions in their property and they get hurt. We primarily represent them to, help compensate them for their medical bills and
Mm-hmm.
rent payments, but we also do general construction litigation, mechanics liens, and construction defect. I have a trade secret misappropriation case right now.
Ooh.
We do real estate boundary disputes. We do labor and employment on both sides. I like plaintiff side better, honestly, but
Okay.
we do a little defense, like reviewing severance agreements and things like
Yeah.
that. Um, what else? We do business, corporate law, and transactions. Pretty much anything that's not like tax law, family law, or criminal law.
Okay. And then, so how do you navigate? You say you, I guess, how am I trying to phrase this? How, because obviously in law school they teach us the basics, and then we get our expertise as we work through this field. So how do you navigate new cases if it's something you've never done before, whether procedurally or substantively?
There's a couple different ways. One is I do always reach out to colleagues, especially the ones that are more senior to me, like my old bosses. I
Mm-hmm.
reach out to them for advice, for help, and they're usually pretty good about that. I also do a lot of learning on the go. Thankfully, because I teach at Cal Western, I have a completely free Westlaw account that I have access to that I
Oh,
don't have to pay
nice.
for. So that really helps. And I'm not afraid to admit that a lot of my learning on the job comes from making mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. I've never made the same mistake more than once, but I do learn from my mistakes, and I think that's a great way to grow as well. Thankfully, none of those mistakes have been, injurious to my firm or my client, but yeah, people make mistakes and we learn from them.
Good. I think that's a really important topic, learning from your mistakes and not making the same mistake twice, and learning from them. And I think that applies to probably just life in general. But that's so cool that you teach at Cal West. What do you teach there?
So I teach two classes. They're both like legal writing classes. I teach one
Nice.
called Advanced Legal Analysis, which is a class for second year law students who want to develop their writing skills, pretty much learn how to IRAC. And for those who don't know, IRAC is pretty much like the gold standard for how lawyers and law students write. It's a form. The I is for issue, the R is for rule, the A is for analysis, and the C is for conclusion. And pretty much the way that lawyers write is we present the audience with what the legal issue is, and then we tell the audience what the rule is, which could be, from a case, it could be from a statute. It's just what the law is. The A is for analysis. That's where we apply the facts of the case or the facts of a hypothetical to the rule, to the law. And the conclusion, which is where we argue or state what we think the outcome should be. So I teach the students how to organize and structure essays and how to use facts to best fit in with the IRAC. And then I also teach the pre-bar class, which you may remember from third year that you take right before bar prep. I teach a small group for that, where I do the same exact thing, pretty much just kind of
Oh,
helping the students learn how to write better and get ready for taking the bar exam.
that's awesome. How long have you been doing that?
Oof. I've been teaching pre-bar since the fall of 2018, and I've been teaching. Oh, I'm sorry. I've been teaching advanced legal analysis since fall 2018, and pre-bar since spring of 2019.
Nice. And then when you were in school, you were also a tutor for a couple classes, right?
For real property one and two, I was, yeah.
Yeah, because you amateur the class, right?
I Android real property two. I think I got an A in real property one, but I didn't get the top grade.
Yeah. So Pat's a smarty pants. Your girl here did not amateur anything. But that's cool. She still passed law school and passed the
I
bar. It's
mean,
all good.
everybody's
It's all
smart.
good.
You know?
Um, do you enjoy teaching?
Honestly, yes, very much.
Nice.
My goal is to one day become a full time professor, teach like one of
Yeah.
the more doctrinal classes like civil procedure or evidence or torts,
Yeah.
and kind of have that, and then have my practice on the side. But my dream is to be a full time professor. I really like it more than practicing, to be honest.
Nice. I think you'd be a great professor. Um,
Thanks.
because I think you're very clear, you're well spoken, and obviously you have a mastery of the subject. Um, what made you want to go into law?
That's a good question. So, in undergrad, I was a history major because that was like one of the only subjects that I ever really liked. My dad was actually a history teacher. He taught in
Oh,
high school when I was growing up, and my dad was kind of one of those, hands-on parents where,
okay.
for example, in the summertime, even though I didn't have any schoolwork, I had to write book reports for my dad because
Really?
yeah, 'cause he wanted me to keep up with my studies and not slack off.
So he
So,
would assign you a book like at the beginning of summer and then be like, "Okay, son, now I need a report."
yep, pretty much. And most of them are history books too. And
Oh my goodness.
he wouldn't give me a grade, but he was just doing it to make sure that I wasn't slacking off, and he wanted me to kind of stay in the school mode.
Like what
Um,
how old was your first book report to Papa McManus?
Probably like fifth grade, like from when I was like a little kid.
Oh,
You
that's
know.
pretty that's pretty young.
Sometimes he used to give me like math problems and stuff to do, like long division and
Oh
multiplication
my
tables.
goodness.
He was a teacher too, so he didn't have anything to do in the summer. So he wanted to keep.
Oh, and you're an only child too, so
Yep, exactly. Yep.
it's not like you can divide the attention. I feel you on that. I'm an only child as well.
Yep.
But oh, sorry, I interrupted you. What
No, no.
brought you to law?
So sorry. Yeah, to answer your question, so I was a history major. And I at first wanted to be a history teacher like my dad, and I was thinking about maybe becoming a history professor, like at the more academic level. Um,
Yeah.
and I
Be
went,
like dad, but better.
um, and I went to the school out in New Jersey. That's where I'm from, is New Jersey. This school called Seton Hall University. They're a smaller school. They're mostly known for their basketball team. Um, and I did student teaching, which is, if you want to be a teacher in undergrad, you have to do student teaching, which is kind of like an internship where you actually teach at a real school. And I did that, and I wasn't a fan. And I went to my like guidance counselor, career counselor, and I said, well,
Yeah.
what else can I do with a degree in history? And they're like, well, you could work at a museum. And I was like, yeah, that might be fun. Or they're like, you can do this, and they're like, oh, you go to law school. I'm like, law school, like be a lawyer. That sounds interesting. So I interned for a lawyer. Ended up getting an internship. He did bankruptcy law,
Okay.
and I interned with him. And I
Out in
took
Jersey?
out in Jersey, yeah.
Okay.
Which is I don't know anything. Armin does. Armin knows bankruptcy. I know not that much, but I interned with him and it was interesting. And I took a legal history class, which is pretty much really just going over really landmark Supreme Court cases from from America, and I thought that was interesting. So I wanted to go to law school. Didn't have enough time to do like a prep course, so I bought like a Princeton Review self study book for the LSAT. Studied for like 6 weeks. Took the LSAT. Didn't do that great, and then ended up coming out to law school.
Nice. And then, so the LSAT is the admission test to get into law school, kind of like, the SATs or ACTs for college. Um, I needed a whole ass course, so I took a whole ass course to study for the LSATs. But um, so I think that's just kind of amazing. You just bought a book and studied on your own, because that was not an easy exam. Obviously, it was easier than the bar, but I can't even remember what it was, but it was like an all day test as well, right?
Yeah. From what I remember, it was three
Gosh, so
sections, kind of like the SAT, and there
yeah.
was reading comprehension, I think a writing portion, and then the third one, which was the one that I was the worst at, was the logic games.
That's right. There was some. I
Yeah,
was like, there's not a math portion, but there was a portion that was like very specific to the LSATs. But yeah,
they
that's
were.
the
It was
logic.
really weird. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, I get why they make you do that, but it was really weird.
yeah. And then so after that, you applied to schools. I'm sure you got multiple offers. How did you decide on California Western?
So I got three offers for law school. One was at Cal Western. One was at Thomas Jefferson, which, as you know, is another law school in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
And then another one was for a law school in Vermont. And I had never been to Vermont, and I had never been to San Diego. So I did some research, and Vermont, like 6 feet of snow in the winter. And then San Diego, I looked it up, like 70 degrees all year round. I'm like, easy decision. I'm going to California. Like, I'll see you guys later.
Right. Nice. So did you really just pick on location wise?
Yeah, pretty much. If I got, I'd been waitlisted at a school called St. John's, which is in Queens, New York.
Okay.
I hadn't heard back yet, so I would have probably stayed out there had I gotten in sooner, because that's where I grew up. But
Yeah.
it was time for a change, time for a new life. It was all based on location. I figured. Also, I guess it was kind of location. I know that California is really at, obviously like the cutting edge of the legal
Mm-hmm.
field. A lot of laws that a lot of other states adopt kind of start here. So that kind of went into it. I thought I'd get a better legal education and have a better time practicing as a lawyer out here. And yeah, I literally graduated on my graduation ceremony, and I woke up the next day at 4 a.m. and started driving out to California.
Oh my goodness. So did you drive out here from New Jersey by yourself? Like you just moved out here by yourself?
I came with my dad, thankfully, because at the time, so even though I'm from New Jersey, my parents had retired and they used to live in Albuquerque, New
Okay.
Mexico. So my dad and I drove from Jersey to Albuquerque in 3 days, stayed there for a bit, and then I came out to San Diego from Albuquerque and found a place and started. I think you did it too, right? Did you do the summer program that they
Yeah,
had
summer
before?
enrichment.
Yeah, I remember. I think we met then, because that's why I had to get out of here so fast, because I did the summer enrichment. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have I don't remember the other guys. It was our year, it was Professor Benner, and then Who was the other professor? I
English
can't
professor Belknap. Belknap?
Belknap. That's
Yeah,
right. Wow, I remember the other guy's name, but not the teacher I actually had class with. You were in Belknap's class, right?
I'd been her
Oh, you had Benner.
because I
Okay, but
actually took him for criminal procedure later on too, so that's why I remember. Yeah,
okay, yeah. It's like, gosh, I can't believe that was honestly, oh my God, that was over 10 years ago. That was summer of 2000. That was June of 2013. It's literally been a decade and 3 months.
isn't that crazy? That's
It's
since
been a
I've been in
decade and
California
three.
for 10 years.
Wow. Okay. I need a quick moment. Was not expecting that right now, but dang, a whole decade and then some. But so much has, like changed even in law, because when we took the bar, it was a 3 day bar and now it's like a 2 day bar. And that makes me feel super old. It makes me be like, back in my day when I took the bar exam, we had to be there for 3 days. Um, did you know what kind of law you wanted to do when you got to law school?
So initially, and this is going to sound really, let's say naive, as a nicer way to put it. I initially really wanted to do criminal defense because have you ever seen the TV show Breaking Bad?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Were you gonna be Saul? Don't be
I
Saul.
thought I was watching the show and I thought Saul Goodman was like the coolest dude I've ever seen. He seemed smart but so funny, and I was like, "Yep, I want to be just like him," except without the whole doing the whole criminal stuff. But- so I was like, "Yeah, I want to do that," and then yeah, obviously, my opinion on what I want to do changed since then because I didn't think I was really cut out for it. But
Like you weren't cut out for it emotionally, or
emotionally and just like I feel like, yeah, definitely emotionally, definitely in terms of responsibility, in terms
hmm.
of what if there's a person, a man or a woman I'm defending who is obviously I think is innocent and they still get convicted, like the guilt, or like I don't know
Yeah.
if there was someone that was obviously guilty, if I could defend them. Obviously, I know everyone has their constitutional right to a fair trial, and
Right.
I commend the lawyers out there who do their job on that. It's integral to our system. Just I don't think I'm the right fit for it. It just like I said, like emotionally and things like that. I think it would have weighed a lot on me.
Yeah, I definitely feel you on that. I had no idea what I wanted to do when I got into law school as well, but I definitely knew I didn't want to do criminal or family law because I figure everything else is just money. And I don't want to say just money as in it's lightly, because it could definitely make or break people's lives. Like we need that to eat, to keep our lights on, to keep, my Wi-Fi on so we can have this conversation now, but at the end of the day, it's not people's life or their liberty or whether they could see their kid or not. Like I feel like what you were saying, morally, mentally, that is a whole different type of responsibility than just negotiating contracts or getting money for a wrongful termination or defending an employer, because especially when it's a company client, you're just like, okay, like this is just going to cost you money. I know you're not going to go bankrupt if you pay a little bit more. Whereas like what you're saying, like I never want to put an innocent person in jail, but at the same time, if they are a convicted murderer, or not convicted, if they are a um before they get convicted, what is it called?
Accused? I,
Accused, like an accused murderer, and if I think he's guilty, like I personally am gonna have a hard time defending him. And especially if it's like, he's accused of, abusing a child or domestic violence or anything like that, like that's gonna be,
too
really
heavy.
hard.
I mean,
Yeah.
as you know, even doing what we do, civil litigation is stressful and heavy
Hmm.
enough as it is. Imagine putting that whole other equation into it. So I guess I'm glad there's people out there that can do it. I don't think it's for me. I don't think I'm the best fit to do that.
Yeah, likewise. um and we mentioned earlier, we bumped into each other a couple times at EO. So something else I super want to discuss is your big glow at Pat.
Thanks.
So when I met Pat, he was a big boy. Um, and since then, I'm looking at him now. He's got a little facial hair going on, looking all handsome.
Thanks.
And and you did it all on your own, right?
Yeah, I did.
So how much? So tell the people, how much weight did you actually lose, and how did you do it?
So when I first moved to California, like 10 years ago, I weighed 330 pounds. Now I
And how
hover in
tall are
between
you? So people can kind of
5'10".
330. So 330 at 5'10.
I'm not breaking 6 feet, but yeah, I'm 5'10", and I used to weigh 330 pounds, and it was none of it was muscle, if you know what I'm saying. Just growing up on the East Coast, it's the culture out there is different in terms of
Mm-hmm.
fitness and wellness than in
Mm-hmm.
California. People aren't as, I think, knowledgeable about it up there. And being young, I was always chubby. I got a job at McDonald's, gained a lot of weight, joined a
Mm-hmm.
fraternity in college, and obviously, the
Lots of
drinking and things.
drinking.
Yeah, so that added to it. So yeah, I weighed 330 pounds. I was very unhealthy when I moved
Mm-hmm.
out here. I now hover between like 200 to 205 at any given time. Um, so yeah, I've lost about like 130 pounds since
Yeah.
then. What happened was, honestly, I I think it was 1L year. I was in class, I think it was real property class, and I got this really weird sensation in my chest. I didn't
Oh,
really know what it was, and it kind of freaked me out. So I left class, and I was so freaked out that I went to the ER. Because I was thinking like maybe I was having like a heart attack or
oh
something like
shit.
that. They told me I was fine. It was probably just like a muscle thing or like indigestion or something like that. But they said, hey, by the way, they're like, you are severely. They said you're morbidly obese and your blood pressure is really high, and you really should think about making some lifestyle changes because your health is not going to get better as you get older.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And you were really young at that time, right? You were in like your mid 20s or
22.
early 20s. Yeah.
Yep, 22. Um, So I decided, okay, it really scared me and I wanted to lose some weight. It wasn't for like aesthetics or anything like that. It was strictly out of fear because I was like, especially going into the legal field, I was like, looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, dude, you're going to die. If you don't lose some weight, you're going to have a heart attack at your desk or something one day. Um, so I started with baby steps. First things first, I stopped going to Jack in the Box 3 or 4 times a week. Um, I stopped eating any type of red meat, which red meat necessarily isn't unhealthy, right? But there are way healthier, leaner options, like chicken and turkey and things like that. I started eating way more fruits and vegetables, less processed foods. I started walking a couple miles every day. I used to live in Bankers Hill neighborhood in San Diego. So I used to walk up to Balboa Park and back every day.
Nice.
Eventually, as I started to lose more and more weight, I was able to jog a little bit. So I started jogging and then walking intermittently until ultimately I could jog the whole way. Then I started going to the gym, lifting weights. And then, like I said, kept keeping the diet consistent. I kept, um, not eating out and eating healthier foods. And honestly, it was just baby steps, but staying consistent the whole way. And I think it happened so fast because I got so into it that I started losing, like actively trying to lose weight, say like June 2014.
Yeah.
And by like June, July 2015, I was down to like 175, like skinnier than I am now. Um,
Yeah.
that's
Because I,
partially due. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead. Because I remember it was, first of all, I didn't realize you had that health scare. And I'm really glad you took the doctor's words seriously because unfortunately, there's people who will be told that you're morbidly obese and you should think about your health, and then they'll be like, okay, and then drive straight to In and Out or Taco Bell or whatever. So I'm really glad that you took the doctor's words seriously and became proactive. And it was very fast. Cause I remember like it was like we ended the school year and then we came back over the summer and you were like literally like half the size.
Yep.
Um, and that was like a very drastic weight loss. How did you feel and how were the people around you? Because when you go through changes, whether it's good or bad, people always, are going to feel some type of way and have something to say.
It was amazing. It was probably like honestly like the one of the best times of my life. Like I
Awesome.
said, I'd always grown up overweight, and
Yeah.
I didn't think I could ever lose it. Not that I ever tried. I just thought that's who I was, and
Mm-hmm.
that I was always going to be like that. So to see that I could actually do something, and like I had a goal and I was getting there is like the most motivational thing ever, to see progress in
Yeah.
something I kind of counted myself out of. And then on the other hand, everybody was so supportive. Everyone out here, obviously, like I was only friends with people from law school at the time. I didn't really have any other friends, and everyone was so nice. Everyone was like, "Hey, you look great. Like, keep it up.
Yeah.
Like, you're doing really good. I'm proud of you." Like, obviously, at some point, started getting noticed by other people that when I was heavier, obviously, I didn't really, if you know what I
By
mean. So,
bitches, just say it.
and that was a whole new thing because that had never been a thing for me growing up, and I didn't really know how to react in some circumstances. I was definitely awkward about it, but yeah, it was amazing. Yeah,
I love that for you. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? Like, because I think, like you said, you know, people, bitches who may have not noticed you before, all of a sudden, like, noticed you now, or when you had the weight loss. Um, how did you personally feel after the weight loss, and how has like your self image and self confidence improved both in your personal life and professional life?
it's a good question. So I'd say like, and in the beginning, the confidence wasn't really there yet, just because like I wasn't really used to it yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I got a little more confident as time went on, and I wasn't so like stumbling over my words and shy and awkward about things. And I felt like at one point though, I like at some point when I felt like really good about it, and I felt like I lost a lot of weight. I felt that that was all I needed in terms of like going out on dates and things like that. I thought, hey, you look good now, and that's all you need. You're gonna get a girlfriend, and all this other great stuff's gonna happen. And then I realized, well, actually, you kind of need to be interesting too, and you'd be, not that I was ever mean or anything, but I was like, I can't just be like, oh, like I lost weight and now I'm all good. I was like, oh no, you actually have to be able to hold a conversation too.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a learning experience. And then in work, honestly, it was great because I'll say this, it's gonna sound stupid, but one of the things I used to hate when I was heavier about any type of work situation or formal event was I hated getting dressed up because having to tuck in a shirt when you have a big belly is the worst because it just pops out and you feel like everybody can see it. And now once I slimmed down, I have clothes, professional clothes that fit better. I felt like I was more like in the role of that young professional,
Yeah.
I could look the part too. And that, you know, I felt like maybe this is going to sound weird. And I don't mean this in a negative way. I felt like maybe now that it looks like I'm taking care of myself in like a work setting, maybe people will take me more seriously.
I was reading up on, so I do still, I was a psychology major and I still am deeply interested in psychology. So I follow Psychology Today and a couple different journals. And they actually publish a study that people discriminate more against fat people than people with physical disabilities like paraplegic people, or people with a limp and stuff. So I don't think what you said is stupid. I think it's very valid. And I remember when we first met, like during summer Richmond, we would all go out together because there wasn't a lot of people during summer Richmond. So both groups will all go out. We all go out in groups. And I remember you to be a very, very quiet guy. So I personally have seen a huge self-confidence boost in you, whether it was, at the gym or even when we were in law school and we would still all go out. Um, so again, super happy for you. And I love the facial hair, by the way, Pat.
Nice. Nice.
It definitely puts like another level of almost professionalism. I don't know why, but it definitely feels that way for like guys, especially if you suit up. Maybe it's because like you don't look so baby faced, but
Yeah. Yeah. Where I get some gray hairs in the beard and on my head too, which a lot of guys I know hate, but I like it. I'm down to be Silver Fox by age 40. That's fine with me. So.
I think it's because we are like still relatively young, and law is such a conservative profession that we're constantly trying to like make the older attorneys respect us. Like I definitely feel the same way. Even now, after 7 years in this profession, sometimes when I tell people I'm an attorney, they still give me the oh wow, you don't look like an attorney. And I'm just like, because I'm not old, white, and male. Like it's a whole different wave. um
I can't imagine. I know. I think you started law school younger than I did. right? Weren't because I started at 22. Didn't you start at like 21 or just turned 22 or?
I just turned, I was 21. Yeah. So when
Yeah, I remember.
I was, yeah, when I visited in March, I like just turned 21. That was like my first time at a real club. And then I was like, oh my God, I love this. And then I moved out here in June to start law school. So I was literally like 21 and a half. So
So I can definitely identify what you just said, and I I think there are a lot of things that are kind of toxic in the legal profession. One of them
mhm,
definitely there is some type of ageism, or like as some
mhm.
people try to say nicely, is like a rite of passage, which is you know. But
Yeah.
I could tell, especially my first years of practice, definitely those attorneys try to take advantage of you being younger. They try to bully you.
Mhm.
They definitely don't treat you with respect. They talk down to you like you're like a little kid,
Yeah.
And so anyway, I'm just saying I completely agree with your sentiments on that.
Yeah. And that's unfortunate, but we just got to hold our ground. And I think what's the unfortunate thing is it's not just the legal field. Like I think almost every field there's those in superior positions or those who spend there longer. Unfortunately, a lot of the times they do feel some type of way because maybe it's because they had to go through what they went through to get to where they are, so they see it as something that's like, well, I enjoy that, I went through that, it's very natural. But I think times are changing and people need to get with a program what you can get away with in the office 20, 30 years ago, you can't get away with that shit now.
No.
So hopefully the landscape will change. But I think now, do you feel like people, or do you feel like opposing counsel treats you differently now that you're the named one of the named partners of the firm?
Um, Typically no, honestly, because I still think they feel that I'm one of these younger attorneys, maybe that I don't really know what I'm doing, just out there to like, you know, make a quick buck or something like that. I have some opposing counsels that are incredibly rude. Mean is another way to say it, and just
Yeah.
saying that talk down to me. On the other hand, though, I think I've developed where back in the day I would just get into an arguing match with people where if I would get mad, I'd just be like, all right, well, you want to be rude, I'll be rude too. Now I kind of just take it in stride. I'm always very professional, and there are a lot of attorneys that have kind of turned around. And honestly, for business, it's great because I've seen that with a lot of attorneys. I get along with them. We have a resolution of the case, and now they refer my firm cases because they think that Armin and I do good work and they see us as professionals, So kind of take it in stride and just not trying to argue with everybody is really,
Yeah.
that's only been in the past 2 or 3 years I've made that realization. So,
Nice. Well, that's why I think they call law a practice, right? Because we got to practice different aspects of it every day, including our patients with both
yeah.
clients and opposing counsel, I'm sure. How has it been working with Armin? Because I know we were friends in school, and I know that, those type of relationships can be difficult, right? Navigating between just a pure friendship, whereas now you guys are business partners and your guys' financials are in stake, your guys' incomes are at stake. And so how has that been, and how has your guys' relationship evolved?
Yeah, it's been great. I'll say kind of two things. One is I think we make such a great partnership because his strengths play to my weaknesses, and my strengths kind of play to his weaknesses.
Okay.
There's certain things that he's very good at. Like for example, when we do trials, Armin does jury selection because he's very, conversational and relaxed and charming to a certain extent.
You're
Whereas
charming, Pat.
I know, but Armin, he has a little more of that pizzazz.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas for me, I do closing arguments because I'm the one like, hey, here's what the law says.
Yeah.
I'm kind of when I do it, it's almost like I'm teaching a class.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that's helped us work very well together. And then honestly, our friendship has gotten even stronger. We've had some, like we were saying before with like COVID and some other business issues, like getting ready for trials. We've gone through a lot. We've had some really
Yeah.
tough times that have had us come together. In terms of like the business, we've never really had a huge disagreement or argument because we both talk it out with each other. We say, well,
Hmm.
here's what I think, here's what I think, and we kind of actually have a discussion, and we usually meet somewhere in the middle. We've never, I know this sounds weird, in 4 years, we've never had a major disagreement that we couldn't get past. It's even to the point, like his dad calls me his second son. Like
Oh,
I'm like,
that's so sweet.
I feel like I'm part of the family now. So it's honestly, I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky to have a great partner and a great support system, and I'm sure he feels the same way. And it's great. It's a rare thing, I think, but it works.
That's awesome. So you guys are business partners, but you guys are still friends and still hang out with each other during your off hours.
We have a
That's
lot of fun
awesome.
happy hours.
That's awesome, and I think that's really rare. Like even just a close friend, I think nowadays is pretty rare. So to have a friend that you can also go into business and make some money with, like I think that's definitely rare, and that's definitely worth protecting. Um, and you guys actually were roommates for a while.
Sure.
As, oh, you guys still are.
Sure.
Wow. So are you guys like just together 24/7, or how do you guys have like or like do you guys ever need a break from each other? Like how is
Sometimes
that?
it's we've been living together for a couple of years now, and I'm actually, because the place where we live, his dad actually owns the house.
Okay.
The rent's great because his dad's given us a break. And
Yeah.
I'm looking for my own place, but just rent is so out of control
Oh
in
my
San
gosh,
Diego
rent
right
is
now.
wild. Yeah.
So I'm just kind of just stacking some money right now, saving up. But anyway, yeah, sometimes we need a break from each other when either he'll go into our office and maybe I'll work from home, or I'll go in the office and he works from home, and then obviously we're like best friends, but we have our own friends too. Where
Mm-hmm.
for example, like I'm never really home that much on Sundays because I play in a softball league, so I'm pretty much
Oh,
gone
nice.
all day on Sunday. And Armin plays golf a lot, so sometimes he'll be out. So even though we're still best friends, business partners, all that, we still kind of have our own hobbies and our own lives, and that kind of is nice because obviously we need to see everybody else too, not just each other, right?
Yeah. So you mentioned sometimes you guys work from home, sometimes you guys go into the office. I know you guys worked with the school, California Western's ALI Access to Law Initiative, and you guys were working out of the school. Did you guys get a different office
Yeah.
or?
Yeah, so for the ALI program, you get an office on campus just for 1 year. And then
Okay.
after that, like it's supposed to be that space is supposed to be used for like the next incoming group.
Okay.
So we actually have an office in downtown, kind of like where the trolley stop is and
There's
like the
a
Starbucks.
there's a few trolley stops downtown, aren't
So
there?
where the courthouse, and say like if you're leaving the courthouse and you're going towards like the water,
Okay. Yeah.
and then there's like that Starbucks down there kind of, and that's like where the red trolley goes.
Oh yes, but like right by the county like recorder's office and stuff.
Yes, yes, right by
Okay.
there. So we have
Okay.
an office in there. It's nothing too crazy. We don't have any windows or anything. Like our whole like business philosophy is that overhead is evil. So we try to save the money instead of getting, like, obviously I would love a sweet corner office with a view of the
Yeah.
bay and everything, but that's something that also has helped make our business work, is that we spend money on what we think is important and we save money on some of the things that we don't think is important. Where some people, if you want to have a really nice office, that's really important to impress your clients and things like that. For us, we don't really look at it that way. So we save money on that and we try to reinvest it in other ways.
No, that's awesome. I think, like you said, you don't need a fancy office to impress your clients, and if you do, then like that's almost worrisome, right? Because what's important should be the quality of your work and the quality of your services, not what kind of view your office has. Um, so is that like an office you guys rent like year round, like every month, or because I know nowadays there's a lot of like co-op spaces where you
Yep.
could just rent for the day or for the hour just to meet clients.
So this one is, we got pretty lucky on this. Again, why it's good to, right, not burn bridges and keep your connections. It's that same law firm that was my first boss, the one
Mm-hmm.
that we do kind of counsel work for now.
Mm-hmm.
Is actually his office. He doesn't work there anymore because he works from home out of his place in La Jolla. He actually has like all of his employees there, and he just has that for like mail and general purposes, and never really goes down there. But since we do work for him, we have the keys, we have the card, and we can go and come and go as we please, and we pay $0 a month in rent. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, so it's pretty cool. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So again, people be like Pat and don't burn professional bridges like me. But so before you mentioned just kind of going back to your weight loss, um when you at your lowest you said you were around 170. Um was that like a healthy weight for you, or was that a little bit too drastic of a weight loss?
I think it was a little too drastic. That was
Yeah.
one summer between second year and third year in law school. I was just volunteering for an internship, wasn't getting paid. I wasn't taking any classes, so I didn't have any loans. So I had money for rent, but in terms of like my money for everything else, like groceries, going out, clothes, I lived off $800 that whole summer.
Oh shit.
Um, so there were some nights where dinner was a pack of peanuts and an avocado from the liquor store. Um, I lost a lot of weight because I wasn't eating that much just because I didn't have the money,
Oh
and it
shit.
wasn't good in terms of physical or mental. Physical,
Yeah.
obviously, I was really skinny, and then mental, like it was very hard for me to focus at work. I was getting kind of like anxious, panic attacks all the time. I think just
Yeah.
because I was so lightheaded, like, I would get
Mm-hmm.
dizzy when I stood up. When you stand up and your blood
Yeah.
pressure, that would happen like all the time. Um, so yeah, I that was definitely not intentional. It was more of just a broke boy diet. Didn't have the money for it, but yeah, I still have some clothes that I bought back then that definitely don't fit anymore because I was about 20 or 30 pounds lighter. But
And what is what is your current diet and workout regime now?
so diet, I try to eat the same thing every day. I eat usually oatmeal or some type of like yogurt for breakfast. Lunch, I'll do just some quick like eggs and like turkey bacon. I don't like making regular bacon. It's great, but I don't like making it. You know.
Yeah.
And then dinner, I usually do some like grilled chicken and then either like some salad or broccoli, things like that. For snacks, I'll do like protein bars, kind bars, fruit, things like that. And then working out, I've been bad because I had two trials this past summer, so I really haven't been to the gym that much. But I do jog every day. I
Nice.
jog 3 or 4 miles every day. I'm gonna try to get back into the gym soon. It's just like I said, I've been so busy that um, I have definitely been slacking in that area.
Um, nice. Well, I mean, like if you have like two court trials is a lot. Like for people who don't know, like litigation is not like suits. Shit does not move that fast. There's so many documents. Like going to court, you're literally carrying like a freaking wheelbarrow of different documents and like not barrels, but documents and binders and different exhibits, not to mention the time it takes to gather those documents, put those documents together, and essentially everything has to be memorized because you need to point to it um right then and there in court. So essentially it's what you see on TV in like 30-40 minutes literally takes months and months and months to put together, not to mention the potential years beforehand that led up to that instance. So yeah, that's totally for understandable and forgivable. But as far as your diet, so you're not tracking anything, it's just intuitive eating, healthy choices.
That's how I
And
lost weight in the first place too. I never really counted calories, more just like
nice.
trying to eat foods that I look up and know are healthy, and then every once in a while I'll go off the deep end. I'll have a couple slices of pizza or a burger and stuff here and there, but not every day. So
Yeah. And I think that's really important because it's balance and it keeps you motivated. It's good for your mental health. It's called balance.
oh yeah,
So that's that's really amazing. And again, like I want to emphasize to people that Pat lost like a third of his body weight on his own. So that is something that is just so impressive because that's really really hard to do, and I don't think people necessarily understand that. When you're in this lifestyle of, like you said, going to Taco Bell 3 times a week, it's really hard to break out of that because those foods are addictive. Like there's I don't know the science behind it, but I did hear Huberman, I can't remember his first name, talk about it on his podcast. I think Andrew Huberman talk about on his podcast. He's an MD. So if you want to know more of the science behind these addictive foods, go listen to the Huberman Lab podcast. And then last but not least, Pat, what advice do you have for people who want to get into law or people who are in law school that want to start their own practice?
Okay, so yeah. So for people that want to get into law, and I actually just had this conversation with a client's son a couple weeks ago. He wanted me to talk to his son because his son's on his high school's debate team and he wants to go to law school. So for law, to if you're interested in getting into it, my best piece of advice is to just explore it. It's kind of like a new world. I remember, and as I'm sure you remember, when you first start in law school, you're going to be looking into the dictionary for like every other word because it's almost like you're learning a completely new language. So when you do it, just do it 100%, and for lack of a better term, drink the Kool-Aid. Just make that your life for a bit because it's such a different type of learning and it's such a different area that you really need to just commit yourself to it and try to do as much as you can. Try to, when you're in law school or even when you're in college and if you have the opportunity to intern in the legal field, try to do it in as many fields as you can because it's just like medicine. There's so many different lawyers out there, just like there's so many different doctors out there that you never really know what's for you until maybe you try it and you love it. For in terms of starting your own business, the number one thing is kind of what I said before, is that overhead is evil. Work from home if you have to. You don't need a fancy practice management system. You don't need a new fancy car. Try to keep your expenses down as much as you can so that way the money that you're making is really coming back to you and into your pocket. And just network. Networking is so important. Your network really is your net worth. My partner and I, for example, we don't advertise at all. And we are so busy that we're working like 12 hours a day just on referrals that we get from friends, from family, from colleagues, from opposing counsel. So it's just great to always treat people well, always be good to people, and people will, reward you for that.
Nice. And then, what advice would you give to people who are struggling with their weight?
Yeah. So as someone who did it myself, I think that anyone is capable of doing just about anything if they are properly motivated. I think motivation is key. And once you have that motivation, it's just important to focus on your goal. Like I said before, baby steps one at a time and just stay consistent. I know it's tough sometimes, like you really want that burrito or you really don't want to go for that jog today. But if you stay focused and you stay motivated, it becomes a lot easier. And as long as you stay consistent, the weight stays off. Because I think a lot of people will lose a lot of weight and then gain it right back. But the consistency is the most important.
I absolutely agree. And I always say alcohol's the devil because that is not only empty calories, but then you get the drunk munchies and you're not craving chicken breast after a couple beers. No, you're craving that fatty, greasy things that are going to make you gain weight. And then usually at that time, it's like late night, you're eating all that stuff and it just sits in your stomach. And, you do that enough and the weight's going to just steadily creep on. And it's all of the extra weight and extra calories. It's not really fueling your body because that's what food it really is meant to do. And then last but not least, Pat, is there anything else that you want to cover that we didn't cover in our conversation?
I think we're all good. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. And then tell the people where they can find you personally. I don't know if you're single. And then
I am at this point.
Okay, give the people your gram. Where can they find you?
You grab my phone.
And I will also put it in the description below. So very eligible bachelor, 32?
32.
32, business owner, law firm partner, law school professor.
Professor, yeah.
And who is about that healthy lifestyle. So he can cook, he can make money. He's got good facial hair going on, looking very handsome, very professional. So let the bitches know. It is Patty Mc... Wait, hold on.
It's Patty Mac, PATTYY .MAC. And feel free to hit me up for like I always talk to. I actually just met someone at a bar a couple weeks ago, and her little brother happened to be a student at the law school where I
Oh,
teach. And she's
nice.
like, "Can I connect you with my brother? Can you give him any advice?" I was like, "Yeah, of course. Here, give him my number, give him my Instagram." So anyone out there, if you want any advice on like anything we talked about today, I'm a professor. I always love to help people along the way in their journey. Feel free to ask me any questions.
And then where can they find you professionally as well?
Oh, my email is Patrick, Patrick, at MK, M is in mango, K is in kangaroo, legal, grp.com.
And I will put all of that in the description below. So whether you want to slide in the DM or send them a more professional email, that will be in there for you. And yeah, well, thank you so much, Pat. I love
Thank
this
you.
conversation. I learned even more about you. And again, glow up, doing your own firm. Like I can't say enough. Like how much admiration I am in of you, and everything you've done and you've accomplished in this past decade since we met. So thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate it so much. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course.